Recording in progress.
नमस्सर्वेभ्यः प्रार्थनया प्रारम्भं कुर्मः गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा हरिः ओम तत्सत्. In the last class we looked into the architecture of the language, going a little beyond basic word level generative flowcharts of Samskritam, where we looked at a little bit of how the Vyakarana Shastra and Parampara went beyond mere syntactic and semantic aspects of the language and entered the sphere of how we can utilize this for congruent conveying of information, whether it's in spoken or written form, through how sentences have to be sequenced and why certain things don't have to be repeated ad nauseum when there is a context available, and how to highlight those contexts, or what they call sangati, and then also how certain techniques, tantra yuktis, are used to ensure that the coverage of the subject is ample, to the point, and complete. Okay, and then another aspect which is somewhat peculiar to Samskrita Kavya is having one common thing convey potentially up to 3 different meanings through what we call direct or literal, indirect or intended, and then suggestive, which means you can say echoed meanings. Okay, so vachya lakshya vyangyartaha, we are going to look into some more about that aspect, but before we jump to that, let us just recall what all we studied under this particular subject line. Okay, so the first thing we saw was this connections are there in sequences of sentences and they have to be congruent. For this purpose, the grammarians allow certain things to be skipped because context will bring them forward in our mind. We don't need to ad nauseum repeat them because it will become little mundane and childish to repeat them. So this first thing is called adhyaharana. It recognizes that human beings have this ability to infer without confusion, without dubiousness, certain things. Where there can be dubiousness, we should not depend on inference. Where there then we will have to be explicit, so that imprecision is not there in the conveyed meaning. So this they recognize. So by describing this adhyaharana, naturally they describe that you should know when that is obvious and when it is not, and we should be explicit. So for example, some sequence of sentence like Ramaha vanam gacchati tatra saha vyagram ekam pashyati tam banena hanti. So lot of these additional red words that are added in brackets, they are actually the adhyaharanas. So tatra, what does it point to? It means in the forest, 1a. That's what it means. So usually the kavis don't tire us by saying Ramaha vanam gacchati vane saha. I mean, it becomes little bit what you call it produces a certain distaste in us, that kind of usage. So beautiful techniques of sarvanamas like tatra, saha, generic pointers. Sarvanamas are like generic pointers to what is the obvious intended target. Okay, sometimes even those can be avoided. For example, you can go Ramaha vanam gacchati vyagram pashyati. Ekam is not needed because it is implicit from vyagram being ekavachana. Vyagram pashyati banena hanti. So you don't even need tam, ekam and tatra, saha, all of them. So you can be even more compact in this language. Okay, so in the first sentence which leads the leads the whole meaning that needs to be conveyed, needs to be little more explicit, but after that you can be curt. This is not of course exclusive to Samskritam, but this is something that needs to be highlighted, and it's called adhyaharana. Okay, Alright, then we saw that actually Samskritam Shastra, Vyakarana Shastra, goes beyond normal grammar, what we know as grammar, and talks about Sangati in a Kriti, basically about the relationships. So it talks about Vaividhyata, okay, Sangati, that means which shows the variety. Prasanga Sangatihi, episodic. Actually, Vaividhyata is not a title of Sangati, it is the different types. Sangatishu Vaividhyata iti vaktum shaknumaha. Prasanga Sangatihi, episodic. Avasara Sangatihi, appropriate. Upodhata Sangatihi, that is opening, this something that comes in the beginning. Hetuta Sangatihi, causal. Karyaikya Sangatihi, work unifying. Akshepa Sangatihi, opposing relationship. Pratyudaharana Sangatihi, contra example. Drishtanta Sangatihi, similar example. Similar means to whatever we want to say to underscore that point, a drishtanta, and a strong example, okay, which supports our point. So, and probably not slightly else in other context. Nirvahakaikya Sangatihi. So this kind of variety stuffs are there. Of course, it itself is a little bit of Shastric text that many historic authors have dealt with, and it will be interesting to go through and understand what they mean in this. Okay. So then the next thing was how they talked of these 4 anubandhas. Okay, anubandhas means the bindings, 4 mentions which have to be kept in the mind throughout the text, but has to be highlighted in the beginning to understand what is the layout. Okay, so it is very important that the text is not laid out in the beginning with a proper introduction to what is the subject matter. Okay, so Vishayaha. So what is the subject matter of the text? Who is the adhikari? Who is the qualified person to be able to access it? What should be his pre-qualification, mentality, etc.? And what is the potential utility of this grantha? What is the resultant utility of this grantha? Why someone should pursue it? And what are the relationships with respect to this grantha of those 3 things? Okay, so this kind of triangle of these things and the relationships are what have to be addressed by the author to make sure that the Pitika or the base is set up right for the grantha. Next we saw that there are many great authors who have talked about something called Tantra Yukti. Okay, the techniques to be utilized in laying out your Shastric texts. Okay, and they have gone in extreme detail, and only one of them I have quoted here, Kautilya's point. There are other authors who have another list, but with significant overlaps, of course, nothing exclusive each of them, but sometimes you will see something new in another authorship which was probably assumed to be included in what is listed, for example, under Kautilya. So very interesting the type of techniques they want to ensure that basically these are the things you should keep in mind and ensure that you address these. So topic layout, arrangement of topics, employment of sentences, meaning of the word. So you should not use dubious constructs. That's why causal reason statement, introduction, mention, detailed statement, explanation, directive versus advice, how you go about it. Try to be mild about your presentation, don't be curt, this kind of thing. Okay, quoting references for providing reasons, extending to a different context, you know, atidesha, space obtaining meaningfully, basically how a certain subject is addressed, like that, and many others. Okay, so obviously, you know, just reading this won't help you. Best is actually if you go through these original sources, what they have done, and with vyakyanas of good others who have written explanations for what the Kavi means, probably even with example. Maybe it's an important subject for anybody who wants to delve into writing something in the not just Samskritam world, even in any other language, has to understand. So I'm sure similar authorship signs texts are available in other cultures and languages, but Samskritam has had this long back. Okay. All right. Next, the subject matter of today is to understand this three level meaning that I spoke about, and this is not limited to just Padya Kavya, not only in verse form. Even when there is a Gadya Kavya, in context there are these triple meanings come. Okay, and we call this as Vachyartha, Lakshyartha, Vyangyartha. Okay, so Shabda Shaktyam Arthatraya Prasaktihi, in the strength of a sound, or you can call it as a word. Okay, in the strength of a word, the ability to give up to three layered meanings. Okay, the possibility of three layered meanings. Okay, not that every time there will be this, but there will be places where some of them will occur together, so places where only one of them is intended. The possibility of three meanings deeply understood. Okay, Vachyartha, this is called Abhida, also is another term used for this. This is the direct meaning or literal meaning. It sometimes tends to be context insensitive. When we take this, like when you pull a sentence out of a whole paragraph or a textbook and tell it to another person, he has absolutely no context knowledge of where this sentence comes from, etc., unless he has some prolific memory and is able to say, hey, this is in 7th chapter of Mahabharata, something like that. But mostly it won't be. So what you can derive at that moment is only the literal context insensitive meaning, so more or less. Okay, so that is almost yantrikam, or basically machine like inferencing. Okay, of course I'm not talking of intelligent layer, non-intelligent machine like inferencing. Okay, so that's yantrika basically. So Vachyartha. So for example, Neerasaha taruhu iha vilasati goho puratah. Let us say there is a sentence like that. Neerasaha taruhu iha vilasati goho puratah. So Neerasaha, we know it's an adjective, gunavachaka or an adjective, and it is in Prathama Ekavachana. Taruhu, oh, it means tree. So nama vachaka, nama padam, and it's also in Prathama, and so that is a Visheshana, this is a Visheshya. Iha, we know it's an Avyaya, and it means it's a Vyadhikarana Avyaya, that means in the sense of a location. So Iha means here, so Atra, this kind of things anybody can do. We don't need any context for this sentence. Vilasati, Vilasa means some kind of sauntering around, enjoying and sauntering around, that sense. And it's a Kriya Pada, it's in Lat Lakara, it's a Kriya Vachaka, it's in Prathama Purusha Ekavachana, so probably refers to some third person entity. And what is could be that entity, because Prathama Vibhakti is Taruhu, so Taruhu Vilasati, so the tree is the one that is sauntering and enjoying. Here the sense of sauntering goes out of the equation, maybe waving in the wind. This much we can imagine. Goho Purataha, Goho, oh, it's a cow, it's a Shashti Ekavachana of a cow, Jati Vachaka, so in front of a cow, Purataha, Purataha also is a Vyadhikarana Avyaya, so in front of the cows, because there is a Shashti, this must be the possessed word of this Shashti, in front of the cow, like this we infer. So very simple meaning we take like this directly. Now if you take it in the middle of some, if suppose this sentence is occurring in the middle of a what you call a Vedantic Grantha, you can't take the literal meaning and say that's what the Kavi said. So you have to go into depth of what could be the meaning in that context. Okay, so something changes completely. Okay, Suryaha Astangataha Asti, the sun has set. Okay, so literally it means yes, it's the evening, sun has set. Okay, so that's all that we take. Okay, but let's see if there are contexts where we can take different meanings. So Lakshyartha, so this is Lakshana, like Abhida is there, similarly this is called Lakshana. Okay, intended meaning, basically indirect and little bit contextual. Context comes into the picture. For example, suppose a mother addressing the husband, okay, I mean that means father, says Suryaha Astangataha Asti, the sun has set. Okay, is this mother trying to tell the dad that the sun has set? Definitely not. She is not given to this kind of what you call meaningless, obvious statement. He is seeing it, she is seeing it, so there is no need for to elucidate to the husband saying the sun has set. So what she means, you see here, the interpretation from the sun has set goes to it is getting dark, like that. Okay, so huge difference between that and this, you can see. Normally we ignore, there is a huge leap to come from sun has set to it is getting dark. Lot of contextual knowledge, and who is telling whom, under what context. Okay, so this one. So next, Vyangyartha. Okay, something that is ingita or vyanjana, or so just like abhida, lakshana, vyanjana is dhvani, or we call echo. There is even a deeper echo sometimes, and this is completely contextual and specific to the guy who is telling, or the person who is telling, and the person who is listening, and the context in which they are in the situation at that time. So this one is indirect, critical sometimes, and contextual also. So this also has this indirect nature, but something deeper implied meaning is there. Okay, so for example, let us say Shwashru Snusham Uddishya, mother-in-law addressing the daughter-in-law. Okay, Suryaha Astangatah Asti, she says. Okay, that means, hey you, why are you forgetting your duties? It is getting late, finish up fast. Okay, so there is a higher dhvani which is even beyond, it is simply getting dark. So this inferencing we won't do if the two parties are not having this kind of relationship usually that exists in the society. So this is where we need to use this triple layer understanding. Even in our life we know this, it's implicit in, especially in mother tongues. When our close friends and parents speak, they don't exactly always just say hey son, read well. They will say something else, थोड़ा टेढ़ा जो बोलते हैं, टेढ़ा बोल के साधित करते हैं क्या आप बोलना चाहते हैं. ओके, सो वही. Okay, any questions?
No, sir.
No, this is fine.
Okay, so this I'm not, of course, intending to go into very shastric explanation with lot of examples at this point. At this level, it is enough to get a 10,000 feet level saying this kind of meanings are existing. Later on, with actual deeper study, we can go into examples and understand this better. What is the dhvani of the kavi in this context, like that. Okay, lot of shastric statements are used by them to explain this. For example, Gangayam Goshaha is a famous pada, and Gangayam Goshaha literally means a village in the Ganga river. So when such a sentence is used by the Kavi, he doesn't mean village inside the Ganga river. What he means is literally a village co-located on the shores of Ganga. So it's so intimately linked to Ganga that he says in the Ganga rather than beside the Ganga. That's kind of Lakshyartha. These kind of things are explained by them in Shastra, but I have given a more practical Surya Astangatah Asti example in 3 contexts to show the variety. So yeah. So basically in Vachyartha, literally every word has its own property, and its Karaka relationship with the Kriya etc. establishes a certain literal meaning. But the Dhvani in this, only if you know the context, for example that who is telling whom and in what context, all these things are very critical. Okay, alright. This has been dealt with deeply by the Kavis. What I mean is not that it's absent in any language, it's present in non-languages, but our Purvajas, they thought through all this and created technical books explaining this so that there is no dubiousness about inferring things. One has to know what we are inferring there. Is it literal, intended, or deeply intended, like that, dhvani or echoed. Okay, now we will go span out back from the Sthapatya level and go deep into one aspect. which is basically why I have chosen verb roots as the first aspect to go a little bit into at this level, is because that is we say no, sarvam dhatujam aha shakatayanasya potam, like that. So that means everything is born from dhatus, right? Since everything is born from dhatus, I think we should look at the structural way in which these dhatus are organized by the language. Okay, so basically we are going to look at what are the various groupings and what are their properties, ganaha, gunaha. Okay, the 10 verb groups, okay, we simply call them from the first dhatu of the list, we call them bhu and others. That is the name of the first list, vadayah, bhu and other dhatus. So like this there are dashaganas. Okay, the properties of the verb roots, what they are, we will see them. Okay, and then we will understand that it is like there are certain tabulated or taught patha, there are some taught verb roots, and there are plenty ways in Sanskritam to have derived verb roots. Okay, so like sanadi, nijanta, namadhatavaha, like this there are atideshika, aupadeshika. So aupadeshika is the taught ones, and atideshikas and I mean the other sanadi, nijanta, etc. are all derived types. Okay, derivation of the verbs from roots. How next the Sanskrit language has the process of going from these roots into active verbs. Okay, so this much at a slightly lower height we will try to observe them. Okay, so the 10 verb groups, what are they? So first group is called vadi, bhu adi, Vadihi. Ganaha is a Pullinga Shabda, so Vadihi is a Pullinga Visheshana to that. Vadihi Ganaha. You can make a Samasta Vadi Ganaha. So it's called Karmadharaya Samasa. Vadi Ganaha or just Vadihi. Okay. Basically, how it is Bhu Adihi. When U and A collide, there is a Sandhi that takes place called Yana Sandhi, and that replaces the U with V, and then Adi remains as is. So instead of U we hear Vadi Gana. It's a little tough to pronounce because of Bha and Va are not easy to lead off. So if you have another Swarakshara or something before, it is easy, but with nothing before it becomes a little difficult to pronounce. But it's Bhu. If you don't want to do Sandhi, you can say Bhu Adaya, like that also. Okay, so this Gana is the dominant Gana, has 1000. We had seen a little earlier, we're just revisiting this to refresh ourselves. 1000 plus. So the Patha are the Aupadeshika dhatus. Aupadeshika, I mean this what here, Aupadeshika dhatus, Upadesha dhatus, those which are given as Upadesha to us. Okay, they are 2000 plus in number. For example, if you go to ashtadhyay.com, I am just using that as the source. Okay, where any good integrated set of them are listed. 2259 are there. Okay, so out of that, half of them come from this Gana. Okay, so it's a very dominant Gana, the first Gana, and has very simple dhatus, as simple as Bhu dhatu, which is a very good prototype for the Gana. Bhavati, Bhavatah, Bhavanti, Bhavasi, Bhavatah, Bhavata, Bhavami, Bhavava, Bhamama, Bhavama. Like this, it has got in one of the lakaras. We will talk into varieties of lakaras later. So that's what we saw. And similarly, 3 other ganas, Divadi Gana, Tudadi Gana and Churadi Gana, which are basically, we also refer to them as the 4th, 6th and 10th. So first, 4th, 6th and 10th Ganas, okay, are the dominant ones. So together they account for 90+% of the entire set of dhatus. Okay, so though there are 10, 4 are very dominant, and there are other smaller groups, some as small as just 10 dhatus. Okay, but it has its own distinctness, that's why it is there. So what is distinct then? Why there are these groups? Because what the Vyakaranas have done is, whatever was the various ways in which Kriyapadas were being used in the language, how it got derived, that they identified the categorization. They said, oh, all these go in a particular way, these all go in another way, these all go in another way. So by identifying the variations between them, they categorized them. So they quickly identified that there are two important variations. One is something that comes in between the dhatu and the pratyaya. Okay, dhatu and its pratyaya, which is, for example, this ti, etc., that I have added here, is a pratyaya. So they found that there are these additional sounds that are required to be inserted. Okay, so that is specific to that group. And then some of them have further trait. For example, juhotyadigana has a dvitvam or duplication nature. Okay, so da dhatu dadati, da has duplicated itself. So other dhatus of this gana also have similar duplication things happening. Okay, and for example, in the 10th gana there is a nich pratyaya e getting added. Okay, so we it almost sounds like as if it means somebody else is doing the job. For example, instead of kshalati, it is kshalayati. Normally this aya type of construct that comes from collapse is more typical for transferred verbs. What we call transferred verbs, somebody else getting something done through something somebody else. But for this particular gana, it is native. So both its transferred form and native form have that sound. So it takes it's a little tough. Unfortunately, it is the second most dominant gana also. So because almost 1/4 of the dhatus belong to this class. Okay, so we call that lakshana as swarthe nich. Nich not for parartha, not for transferring the action on another. It is in the swartha, in the doer's own hand still, but it has a built-in nich pratyaya or the e adding to itself. So this kind of scientific categorization has been done. What is the vikarana pratyaya? What is the vikarana means? Vikara means transformative additant, transformative. How do we say additant? Something that we add, whatever that we add. Okay, so transformative infix, let's call it for now, and that is put in place before the suffix is added. Okay, and then proper rules are there how to combine them using sutras, sandhi or sandhi like sutras. Okay, to generate the final form. So bhu ati bhavati. Okay, as nothing ti asti. Okay, so here this one has no vikarana, similar to how juhotyadi also, but it has duplication. Dadati, the gets added to, so dadati. So nashya is the vikarana, nashyati, like this. Okay, so how the grammarians handle this in the patha, when the dhatus are taught with their meaning. So bhu sattayam, like this the patha. So bhu sattayam is the first line of the dhatu patha. So and then because it is in the bhu etc. group, so they have certain built-in shap pratyaya occurring etc. and a declension form. So in Panini and Ashtadhyayi he has put the sutras for this vikarana, dvitva, all those rules will be there. Okay, but the patha is separate from the basically this is the database, the patha is the database, and these rules are the software programs for taking the transformations that we show. Okay, this is just the primary sutra that I have mentioned, which talks about the vikarana pratyaya. More sutras will be involved. Okay, so yeah, so now basically you may ask why there is this 1930 and here is 2002, what is all this? There are different pathas. Okay, there are different pathas, but here I have finally taken the useful column as what we have access to in a congruent searchable way, which is the list in the ashtadhyayi.com portal, where he has created a comprehensive list, not trying to say this is that patha, this patha, etc. This is the final patha, like that. Okay, So it's a comprehensive. This is one particular example of some patha. So what to remember about dhatus? Dhatus occur in 10 different groups. 4 of them are dominant. The dhatu ganas are identified with the first dhatu name itself, first, etc. Like that. Okay, that's bhu adi, bhadi. And the dominant ones are first, fourth, sixth, and 10th. Okay, and why they are different groups? Because each gana, each group has a particular trait. The trait may be in the nature of the infix transformative letters that are added between the dhatu and its pratyaya, or even in the way in which the dhatu's sound itself is varied with the dvitva in one case, then juhotyadigana. And in one other case, it is about how, in addition to the vikarana pratyaya, there is another pratyaya that is added called swarthanich in that gana, and 1/4 of the dhatus have that variety, that color. Okay, so this is the thing. This is the way they organized it. Of course, could have been thought of in different ways. This is the way they organized. There are further subtle more details with each gana. For example, some ganas have upaganas. Okay, we are not going into that. Some ganas have subsets within them which have peculiar variation, still overall satisfying the group requirement of belonging to the higher gana, but having some peculiarity. So we have not gone into all those hierarchic further classification. Okay, upapathas are there within each mahapathas. Okay, so dhatu vikarana thing. This is the technology for getting the kriyapada. Okay, dhatu vikarana thing, and in some cases there is a additional insertive for this churadigana. There is a nich. So dhatu nich vikarana thing. Nich becomes finally e, and this vikaranas, though they are called technically by Panini with very different names like shap, shyan, shlu, shnu, sha, shnam, ushna, shap, etc. Many of them have similar. For example, occurs in couple of places. So other variations occur in other places. So interesting.
But how to remember these things? You have different dhatu and
how the grammarians, Sanskrit grammarians remember is through these Panini sutras. Okay, so they would have memorized all the 4,000 sutras of Panini. Okay, I'm not talking of many today, but in the ancient times for sure. There are many today also who memorize this from childhood, but in the ancient times it was a very strong parampara of memorizing. So for them, kartari, shap, adi prabhrutibhyah, shapah, and all this, moment they said this, no, for them this entirety of operations that takes place in this gana is very clear. Adi, no, adi pratibhyah, adadi gana. So adi, so ad is there, no, adudat. So they know when they are doing the patha, they know in which context they are. They are talking about the vikarana pratyayas, etc. So that's how they know. Okay, we know because we search the database, find out. We are not depending on memory right now because we are using computerized access to these to understand. Yeah. So what we have done now is our engineers have created the final form by coding all this sutra power into their software layers. Okay, in whichever language, and accessing the dhatu and generating all the various forms according to the rules, right? Because these codings are clearly present, following guidelines of Panini, they can write software to produce these outputs. Okay. So now what we do is, at primary level, because we are not going to be lucky enough to start with dhatu patha and ashtadhyayi patha, etc., and understand it scientifically, what we try to do is, of course even they also will not depend on, in their brain they won't run Paninian engine to come with a sound from their mouth. So what we do is, there are certain 100 or so dhatus that we use 95% of the time. They are very much aware we are using these dhatus in real life. Nobody tries to use all the 2200 dhatus in their normal usage. except kavis sometimes may use more than the 100 that I talk about. Kavis who write kavya may be having larger repertoire in when they deploy it, but a normal good Sanskrit speaker may have 100 plus, and then for that he will know all the popular declensions for those 100 by categorizing them, saying these all are in this group, so they decline like this. So immediately his brain is able to come out with the correct form of the dhatu in any lakara, in any vachana, in any purusha, like that, tuck tuck tuck, over time. Just the way we learn local languages, we don't study them as shastric way of generating sounds. We know how the prakriti and pratyaya combine in Kannada and generate the correct sound. It is very simple in local languages. It is not very technically detailed. A lot of apabramshas are getting generated because of that. But in Samskritam, it is very, very technically accurate, so that there is no apabramsha. There is no deviation from region to region. Okay, all that is already accounted for, so now we are not allowed to deviate further. Somebody in the south Karnataka cannot say bhavati, in the middle Karnataka cannot say bhavati, and in the north they cannot say bhovati. This happens in Kannada, if you notice, right? So it can't happen in Sanskritam. That's the reason why they made it a shastra. Okay. Okay, so what are these gunas, or the properties of the verb roots and their suffixes? Okay, so today there is an excellent, of course, a living legend is Pushpa Dikshitavarya. She is a lady who is, I think, who stays somewhere in the north, in the Uttar Pradesh region. I am not sure exactly where, maybe in the Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, somewhere there. And she runs a Gurukula even today in the old Paddhati. Okay, lot of students go live in her Gurukula. It's like probably her house where she literally cooks for them and all that. So like lot of foreigners are also there who are her students and have studied Samskritam under her, just like normal Shishyas, they sit there and all that. She also periodically also comes on YouTube channel, and some of her lessons are available there, but it is strictly for very high scholars. And I tried to follow some of her videos and found that I am totally not an adhikari. I become like a person unable to appreciate the depth of what she teaches. So very high level grammar she teaches. Okay, she has this Paniniya Dhatu Patha book where she has illustrated all these pathas, okay, which she literally teaches from childhood to her students. So what are the various properties? Okay, the first property of a dhatu is it sakarmaka, akarmaka, or dvikarmaka. This concept exists. Okay, so sakarmaka means, does it deserve a object, target as an object? Okay, does the dhatu has the sense of an object? For example, if the action is about going, immediately two things come into mind: who is going and to what location he is reaching, or where to where. What is the vector of his going sense? There is a vector, that means there is a pointer to somewhere. So we recognize this vector or the point to which he reaches as a karma pada. In Sanskrit we call it karma. So Ramaha vanam gacchati. So the gam dhatu is a sakarmaka dhatu. Okay, that means it has a vector of reaching a location called vana. Ramaha vanam gacchati. So this is called sakarmaka dhatu. Okay, next there are some, not a huge, most dhatus tend to be sakarmaka by nature. Okay, but there is a good lot of dhatus which are akarmaka, which do not have such orientation or vectoring towards something. For example, Ramaha tishtati, Rama stands. There is no vectoring beyond Rama just standing up. Okay, you cannot say Ramaha, Karmapada is not there. There may be a location. Don't confuse Karmapada with location. Sometimes Karmapada sound like location, like Vana is a location, for example. But Vanam Gacchati is different than Vane Gacchati. Vane is the locative use of Vana Shabda, in the forest. Okay, Vanam is to the forest. So there is a Karmatva in the way in which we use in English. There is, but in Sanskritam it's very clear: Karmapada Vanam. Okay, vanam gacchati. It's in dvitiya vibhakti here. Okay, it's having the dvitiya karakatva or the karma karakatva in it. Okay, so it has a vector destination pointed, so he is not reached there, so it's not yet a location, it's just the pointer towards that place. So Ramaha vanam gacchati. Okay, if he has reached, then we use a different dhatu. Ramaha vanam prapnoti, something like that. He obtains the forest, like that. Okay, something. So Ramaha tishtati, Rama stands, stha akarmakaha. Okay, so many other wish dhatu, the wish dhatu is the one to sit down, upavishati, Ramaha upavishati. We don't have a karma pada for that. Okay, yes, you can have a adhikarana, Ramaha asande upavishati, Ramaha grihe tishtati, but they are all saptami adhikarana, they don't have karma point karakatva strength in them. Okay, so yes, sometimes we confuse the adhikarana with karma. So because especially in gacchati, vana sounds like adhikarana, so we should not confuse. If you say Ramaha vane gacchati, it literally means he is moving around in the forest, not moving into the forest. Okay, that's the difference between karma and adhikarana. Okay, and then some of them are dvikarmaka also. Okay, ni, for example, natively ni is a dvikarmaka. So Ramaha pushpam griham nayati. So both pushpam is in dvitiya, griham is in dvitiya vibhakti. Both have karma karakatva relationship with the kriya pada, but they are different types of karma pada. Okay, they are not visheshana. Pushpa is not a visheshana to griha, griha is not a visheshana to pushpa. So they are not in the same adhikarana, in the same vibhakti and vachana, because they are visheshya visheshana. No, they are not visheshya visheshana. Pushpam has a karakatva relationship of karma with nayati, and griham also has with nayati. So Rama, the flower, to the home he takes. Okay, home is a destination of taking, because there is a action of going related in taking. Okay, that takes griha, and then pushpa takes the karma padatva of carrying. So this nayati is a double compound, you can see literally. It means he carries and takes, moves. Okay, he carries and moves. So he basically, the dhatu takes has two actions. One is he is lifting something and holding it, and then he is moving. Right? It may not be, unless we microanalyze in our mind about that, we don't recognize that there are two actions there. So actually the two karma padas are for the two varieties of actions embedded in one single action here. Looks like I am losing students fast. Okay, so this is dvikarmaka. So this is the first thing: sakarmakatva, akarmakatva, dvikarmakatva. Okay, all right. Next,
So the karma means pushpam griham.
Two karmas.
It has nothing to do with the karma pada, right?
It is the ability of the kriya pada, or the dhatu really in the kriya pada. It's the ability of the dhatu in the kriya pada to take two types of objects.
Okay.
For the nature of the activity requiring such pointers. Okay.
Okay. The karma.
What he carries to where he carries it. Unfortunately, in English grammar, this karakatva force is not well recognized and elucidated, or whatever is the word. Okay, in Samskritam, they have accurately done this. Okay, that's what. The Karaka force has been recognized very powerfully. 7 vibhaktis have been identified, 6 Karaka vibhaktis and 1 non-Karaka vibhaktis. They have further identified that this Karma Karakatva has double nature to it, and like Gauna Pradhana nature to it, and certain Kriya Padas require two variant types of Karma Padas to go along with them to completely illustrate what is the action. Okay? So they have chosen to embed the two under karma karakatva. One as pradhana, one as gauna. Okay.
Yeah. Same thing. If you have put it in English, then it 4 plus maybe 2 more words are required, right? Go ahead.
English, what it does is, in our the way it brings the karaka force into the sentence is with additional words. We can call them as upapada. For in Samskrita, we
Upapada.
would call them as upapadas. They have particular phrase in English grammar. This to, far, from, etc. are called certain words. I don't know.
Yes.
I've forgotten, long forgotten what they are titled. So they use that.
Yes.
But it is very, the karaka force is unclear in them, because first they don't have prakriti pratyaya nature to it, the language. Next, the sometimes not always two means one type of karaka force, like that. There are variations in how they are very. It's very, what you call, you can't. It is a forest where you can't categorize the beasts. Is this a tiger? Is this a lion? You can only say it is a beast. That's all. That kind of language it is sometimes, right? At least to my mind. Okay, may not be to a proper English grammarian. So basically, there are a lot more exceptions than there are rules. Whereas in Samskritam, the exceptions are properly exceptions and rules are dominant. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next property is something very peculiar. Okay, set, anit, wait. Three type of variant. I mean, this is one category. A dhatu can, for example, above also, a dhatu can be sakarmaka, akarmaka, or dvikarmaka. It cannot be all three. It's meaningless, right? They are distinct in nature. Okay. Of course, a dvikarmaka belongs under sakarmaka, but it is further dvikarmaka. Since we have separated it out, we no more use the simple sakarmaka title. So sakarmaka means simply one karma, and dvikarmaka means two karmas. Akarmaka is without karma. So 0, 1, 2, three variants are there. Okay, and here also either the dhatu is a set dhatu or a anit dhatu or a wait dhatu. This one typically is not just dhatu's property. We recognize this pratyaya's property also. So little bit is that color is there, but okay. What this is basically it. There is a process in Samskrita dhatu to kriyapada construction path called idagama. Okay, so this idagama, whether it occurs or not, okay, is what we are talking about. So when we say set, we say that dhatu has idagama, anit dhatu no it agama. That means without idagama. And wait, the means either you have the choice of having two types of forms, one with the idagama, one without the idagama. So va, it, wait. So Panini and grammarians simply title these are wait dhatus, these are anit, these are set dhatus, like that. Agama sahit, idagama sahitaha, vina idagamaha, vikalpena idagamaha. That's what they just technically nicely shortened it to set, anit, wait, instead of explaining all this in the title. Okay.
So based on the root to the verb, different forms, how it is formed, that process, based on that process.
Correct. So there is a additional software step called idagama that is applicable for such dhatus which are set, or such dhatus optionally which are wait. Okay. For anit, you should skip that step. Okay. See, so basically what they have done is they have done property tagging. Okay, property tagging to the dhatu pata, by which we know how which software layers have to be applied or not applied, or optionally applied. Okay, so should be applied, should not be applied, can optionally be applied is the variation here. So how this is, you can object oriented programming technique, you can call it. The object embeds certain thing by which it directs the software to go in a certain path. Okay, which you guys use all the time in your databases. Okay, next important property is something called sarvadhatuka and ardhadhatuka. Okay, either things are sarvadhatuka or ardhadhatuka. So pratyayanam guna, this is the guna of the pratyayas. Okay, so because I am talking of verbs, roots and suffixes, so there is this here. Okay, so some lakaras are the pratyayas. Finally, what is a lakara? It is that which is added in the end. So when we say lat lakara, what we are doing is, for example, you go back here. Okay, when we are doing bhu ati, what we are doing is dhatu plus vikarana plus ting, right? This ting is the first thing. Ting is very broad. It can be any suffix from the 10 lakaras of 3 purushas, 3 vachanas, etc. It's a very vast set. So next we have to narrow it down. The first level of narrowing is called lakara narrowing. Am I trying to use vartamana kala? Then I have to use substitute thing with lat. Okay, so the software guys, how they do it. So we have to add a thing pratyaya, but which thing pratyaya? Oh, lat. Okay, lat. Then we think, oh, which of the lats? Oh, I need 1.3 because it's prathama purusha bahuvachana. It is Rama Lakshmana Sitaha is the karta. So I need 1.3. So we replace lat with whatever is the correct pratyaya for 1.3 in the table of lat. Okay, so this is how we go in software, right? So same way Paninian grammar goes like that. So here. So for lat suffixes, lung suffixes, vidiling suffixes and lot suffixes. What are these? Vartamana kala suffixes, one type of bhutakala suffix means and then one vidhi means directive or request type of suffixes, or lot, which is again prarthana directive type. So two varieties, one is vidhiling, other is lot. So these 4 lakaras, they actually have sarvadhatuka pratyayas. We call those pratyayas of those ganas as sarvadhatuka, ganasya vikarana. Okay, so in these cases the particular dhatu ganas vikarana pratyaya, which we studied earlier, very little difficult software stack to understand. This vikarana pratyaya that we studied earlier, these are useful for sarvadhatuka pratyayas, only for sarvadhatuka. So I cannot put other than lat, vidiling, lung and lot in this column when I talk of vikarana pratyaya. Other lakaras do not use this vikarana pratyaya of the gana. So the gana vikarana pratyaya that we spoke of is very important, but only for 4 lakaras. Okay, see how very structured they have gone about it. Okay, so they are called sarvadhatuka pratyayas. So lat, lung, vidiling, lot when we talk of them. Okay, then we substitute gana vikarana. In when these occur, we use gana vikarana. For ardha dhatukas, okay, lit, all the basic rest, lit, lut, rit, ashir, ling, lung, ring, lot, late is Vedic. So all these we use ardha dhatuka or lakarasya vikarana. The lakara itself has a vikarana pratyaya that comes into play. So the vikaranas have been gathered together in the gana property for 4 of them and left alone to belong to the lakaras vikarana for the rest of them. So these vikaranas are ignoring gana vyavastha. Okay, whereas these vikaranas are that are used in lat, lung, vidiling, lot are honoring the gana vyavastha. So the gana vyavastha is restricted to these lakaras technically. It is the vikarana. There may be other things that are still belonging in gana. Okay, I am not saying, at least the vikarana pratyaya part of the gana vyavastha is gone out of the equation for these lakaras. Okay, this is a little complex, but I am sure you are all software experts, so you are able to appreciate this. Okay, so this sarvadhatuka, ardha dhatuka is the next property that we have to keep in mind. So I am little bit digging into the little bit of the depth of thing, but I won't be tiring you with actually figuring out how to apply this and all that, but at least we will appreciate these kind of technical variations are there and how these taggings and all these are being used by the Vyakarana Shastrajnas to structure the language, Paninian language. Okay, Parasmaipadi, Atmanepadi, Ubayapadi is the next property layer for this verb roots and suffixes. So this is again is actually what type of pratyaya in the pratyayas that we use, whichever lakara, whether we talk of lat lakara, lung lakara, any lakara, there are 2 subvariants in each. So you can have a parasmaipadi lat or a atmanepadi lat. Okay, suffix variation. So dhatus themselves tell, am I legal to take parasmaipadi set? Am I legal to take atmanepadi set? Am I legal to tell both? Take both. Okay. For example, kru dhatu is a ubhayapadi. So it has two forms. Even in latlakara, it has two forms: karoti and kurute. Kurute comes from atmanepadi suffix table usage, and karoti comes from parasmaipadi table suffix usage. So ting pratyayeshu parasmai atmane iti dvida, karoti tishtati ityadi parasmaipadi rupani, kurute वर्धते भादते इत्यादयः आत्मनेपदी रूपाणि. ओके, तो अत्र कृ धातुः उभयपदी धातुः, अतः करोति इत्यपि अस्ति, कुरुते इत्यपि अस्ति. भवद्भिः रामः कार्यं करोति इति शक्यते, रामः कार्यं कुरुते इत्यपि शक्यते, चिन्ता नास्ति. परन्तु तिष्ठति इति न तथा. तिष्ठति इत्येव उपयोक्तव्यं. परन्तु केचन उपसर्गयोजनेन तेषाम् आत्मनेपदित्वं प्राप्तिः अर्हते, परन्तु तत्र न गमिष्यामः. ड्यू टू सम उपसर्ग एक्सेट्रा समटाइम्स पदित्व चेंजेस, बट नेटिवली if you are not adding all those, it is tishtati only. Okay, and similarly vardh is a pure atmanepadi. You don't have vardhati, you would have vardhate, bhadate, like this forms only. Okay, so it's another what you call quirk. Now, what is this parasmaipadi? What is atmanepadi? Ubhayapadi is both obviously allowed, that is clear. But why parasmai? Parasmai mean for others, atmane for oneself. Yes, very long ago, this kind of restrictive, in the pre-Paninian times, this kind of restrictive nature was not there. And generally, people could use dhatus in both. We have seen ancient kritis which don't follow Paninian diktat of parasmaipadi, atmanepadi. Okay, they treat as if dhatus are ubhayapadi. We have seen that. Even today those texts are there and we can see that there. So what is concluded is this: for some reason this force of parasmai atmane diluted over time, and by Panini's time they didn't carry the strength of parasmaipadi to mean the action is for others, atmanepadi to mean the action is for one's own benefit. No. Okay, and ubhayapadi is those which allow both, like that. No. So finally we just take them as forms of pratyayas. That there are two colors of latlakara pratyayas, one called parasmaipadi pratyaya style, another called atmanepadi style. Some dhatus take only one, some dhatus take only the other, some dhatus allow both. That's how we simply treat it today. But it's very clear that ubhayapadi exists so that certain color of selfish intent or non-selfish intent can be highlighted using the nature of karoti versus kurute. Okay, so somehow that got diluted over time. Today we just treat them as complete equivalents, but historically maybe the language was even more powerful, where they did use this to, in a sense of, for others, and in the not just for self, maybe not just only for others, but at least not completely selfishly, and kurute being a selfish nature of action. Okay, selfish meaning intended to oneself. Selfish doesn't mean in the wrong sense of selfish, pointing to one's own requirement, something like that. Okay. But if you see some of the atmanepadi dhatus, those dhatus have that self-centered nature of action. Vardhate, growing. Growing is one's self-centered action. Bhadate is bothered by. So somebody, when he is bothered by, it's a self-centered feeling in his mind. Okay. So these kind of, we can see the nature of dhatus and why they are atmanepadi. It does tell us that historically there was a powerful color of self-centered requirement of the dhatu and non-self-centered being parasmaipadi. Other, but over time that has little bit diluted. Today we say Ramaha karyam karoti or Ramaha karyam kurute. There is no distinction. In later kritis we don't see any such color variation. So it has been a major what you call dilution that has happened and is accepted into the Paninian grammar today. Okay, all right. Next we have another important thing in the equation. Is the dhatu an ajanta dhatu or a halanta dhatu? Okay, what is this ajanta dhatu, halanta dhatu? Ajanta dhatu is dhatu with a swarakshara in the end. Ach means swara. Okay, again Paninian title. Ajanta is a short name for swaranta dhatavaha. Halanta is a short name for vyanjananta dhatavaha. Instead of using swarantaha, vyanjanantaha, because he stays in the world of titles like this, set, anit, wait, ach, hal, etc. Pratyahara. So it's named so ajanta halanta. Okay, all right. So for example, da, ni, bu, kr, a, I, u, r. These are all ajanta dhatus. Okay, gam, lik, khad, halanta dhatus. M, k, d, halanta dhatus. And it's not accidental that matters. Okay, so that's why we recognize this ajanta halanta nature of dhatus. In the very pata itself, bhu means ajanta dhatu, like that. Okay, so even the vikarana pratyayas we studied in the middle table for the 4 lakaras, the vikarana pratyayas that you used, they are also adantas, anadanta, etc. Okay, of course we have not looked at vikarana pratyaya, lakara specific vikarana pratyaya so far, but all right. Okay, so adanta anadanta va iti drashtavya asma vikarana etena dhatu plus vikarana angakarye. This is called angakarya. Dhatu we attach to vikarana and do a derived what is called modified dhatu. I should not say derived, modified dhatu, and that's called angakarya. Anga being a partial vyutpatti work, angakarya. So prakriyayam bedaha. So if it is a ajanta dhatu, there is a specific process, software steps to be taken. If it's a halanta dhatu, there are specific software steps to be taken. So that's the thing. Okay, so this is another so you can literally see the science of producing words is very detailed, honoring various properties of dhatus due to their meaning. Some of them are completely meaning dependent. Sakarmaka, akarmaka is a meaning based. Similarly, you can say parasmaipadi, atmanepadi, ubhayapadi. Historically, at least it was meaning based, whereas some are simply structure based, like ajanta, halanta, set, anit. It is simply definition based. Set, anit, wait is definition based. This is dhatu's own ending defines it. Okay, you don't need to look at some other formula. So this kind of thing. So let us see. See, vadihi, divadihi, tudadihi, churadihi. Okay, 1700, in the range of 1700 to 2000, 90% actually are adanta vikarana pratyaya uktaha. This is another magic. So first gana, fourth gana, sixth gana, 10th gana adanta vikarana pratyaya uktaha. Okay, this adantaha, anadantaha va. Okay, vikarana pratyaya. Whereas the remaining ganas, balance ganas, are anadanta vikarana pratyaya yuktaha. Short set. So in this ajanta halanta is for dhatu, this adanta anadanta is for vikarana pratyaya. So all these also play a role. So all the blue items we are seeing here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 variants. Okay, this I shortened it to one line here, shouldn't have, to keep the slide large enough, the font large enough. I have done that. So these are all impacting how we construct the final kriya pada. So it's extremely technically precise. Okay, with lots of careful steps and choreography involved in producing the final word. You will not be able to at all, finally when we learn the final form as a normal practitioner, we are not able to appreciate the science that has gone in behind arriving at tishtati. Okay, this is all the science that has gone behind arriving at tishtati. Okay, so this is the highlight of what I wanted to talk today. So any questions with respect to this before we move on?
Sir, can you please tell about what is idagamaha?
Basically it is a pratyaya. Okay, it is a pratyaya that gets added in the process of generating the kriyapada. Okay, so
One example, sir.
I right now I don't have any examples sitting in front of me. Later I can show through some examples. I will send you an answer by the WhatsApp group showing where it occurs, without occurs, so that we can distinguish the forms. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
All these things were done by Desika software, sir, that when they developed long back in during Ramanujam time. It was done in the gist card when the DOS PC was there. Like
okay, very
later, some
interesting.
part was moved to Windows. The only part of the software was moved to Windows.
Okay,
So
very good.
yeah.
Very good. Actually, this entire thing is the core of how, for example, in ashtadhyayi.com, when you go to Dhatu Pata and then you go there and click on Bhu Dhatu, moment you click Bhu Dhatu, it will give you table of all the 10 lakaras. Okay. And
Yes,
if
sir.
it is Ubhayapadi, it will give you 2 columns of tables, etc. What is happening when we click the Bhu Dhatu is exactly it is exercising a certain software layer, okay, and triggering the entire generation. Either that has happened in the background, it may be available as a final output database sometime somewhere, either live there when you click or behind the scenes. That process what you describe has happened to use all these Paninian Shastric terms and its software lines to give the generation. And how
Yeah,
it's
dhatu root plus pratyaya, the sandhi formation will happen. Then the final formation.
correct.
Yeah.
So for example, I'll just deviate a little bit, just hold on a bit, because I think it's relevant since we are talking about it. So let's say we go to Dhatu Pata like this, okay, ashtadhyayi.com. Now I'll click Bhu Dhatu. See here, this is the Patha, okay, Bhu Sattayam. Students only studied this, and they study this much by having a certain tonality. It's a Patha with a certain tonality, and the tones means something also. It's very deep, very deep. Sometimes in the intervening years that tones were lost, and now they have regenerated the tones by knowing the properties. Okay, so we have a what you call Swarayukta Patha available if somebody wants to memorize and learn that. Okay, so what this literally means, it is a Vadigana. Okay, it's a Parasmaipadi. So these are not apparent to the student just like that. Okay, but since he is reading it under Vadigana and certain tone, he knows the Padi is coming through certain Swarita, Udatta tones of reading. Okay, alright, very deep. I mean, I only bow down to their brilliance, that's all. Okay, and then Akarmaka is known by meaning by them. Okay, and by meaning they remember it's Akarmaka. Okay, and Set. So I don't know if there is a way in which they memorize that, but at least this is. So this is a Bhu Dhatu, is a Parasmaipadi Dhatu, it is Akarmaka Dhatu, is a Set, Site, Idagama happens. Okay, and this is what, and this is Bhashantara for the meaning. Okay, this Google engineer who created this portal has put the effort either from some other people who have supplied him or himself to give all this. So now if I click this, immediately I get the let me okay, so immediately this is too much, 200 will be enough. So immediately he gives me the full acts. Of course the same thing in the Pata is repeated here a little bit, Bhu Sattayam Vadi etc, property list of that, and he even identifies that this one is in there is a Kaumudi Dhatu Pata, Kaumudi Dhatu Pata. So in that Dhatu Pata this is the first one, and it is also in his own index, it is the first Gana, first Dhatu. Okay, see he gives positions up to 1000 Dhatus to fit and then first gana. So next what he has done is he allows you to see its form in under so many categories, but we are interested in active voice. Let us say active voice. Okay, active voice. Okay, so here, so 19 categories are there, you can see 1 2 3 4 like this. Okay, so bhavati, bhavatah, bhavanti, bhavasi, bhavatah, bhavatha, bhavami, bhavamah, bhamaha. What do we understand by kartari, lat, parasmay? So means somebody is, some two people are, many people are, many people, you are, you two are, or will be, or whatever, are actually, and then you all are, then I am, we two are, we all are. That's what all the whole meaning of this is, what I explained in English. Okay, satta means in the existence sense, sattva, satta, sattva is sattva, sattayam. Okay, in the nature of being, is dhatu of English. Okay, so if I just click this, you will now appreciate what all the rules that have been applied. Okay, so bhu sattayam. So what immediately this engineer and whatever other software they have used behind recognizes that this bhu is identified by Panini as a dhatu, because in his sutra, very basic sutra, in the first chapter, third, so he said bhu adayah dhatavaha. Please treat the pathas that you read of bhu etc. as dhatus. That's all he is saying. But by saying that, Panini opened up that you can now treat it like a dhatu and start applying whatever can be applied to dhatu. So he is kind of enabled that shabda to be a target of prakriya for dhatus. Okay, next, what is my desire? My desire is for a vartamana kala, let us say. This is the software program, in addition to database, requires user input. So the first user input is that I need a lat, and this lat is also having a swarakshara there, because that's upari, that's ardha bindu, ardha chandra bindu. That one is actually to indicate even the sound is actually a it akshara. That means it's a technical letter. Only l is what is intended. So t are all technical letters there. So what is the Paninian sutra that enables me? If you want vartamana, please use lat pratyaya. That's all he says in one sutra. Okay, again, if you click this, you can go into full engineering of that. This is the brilliance of this work. Okay, my computer is still loading. Okay, doesn't matter, whenever it comes, it will come. Maybe I have to refresh. Right. Okay, so that formula, if you go no, it will have a lot of adhyahara from previous formula, etc. And finally, what it means is dhatoho vartamane lat pratyayah parascha, something like that. It should be applied afterwards. We should use lat pratyaya in the sense of present tense for dhatus. That's what it means. Okay, and there is one lawyer who is even S.C. Vasu. If you click na, he explains all this in English. For those of us who are not able to consume Samskritam directly, he has explained that in English. Okay, so there are a lot of SamskritaVyakaranam, etc. What this brilliant site has done is collected all the information for us, so that we can explore there. So next, you see, so because t are technical letters, next process is to delete the technical letters. The technical letters are not meaningless. 1 minute, give me a second. Sorry, it was too late. Okay, the technical letters are not meaningless. They have certain properties that are being described as to how to proceed. But for now, we will shorten them of that and say bhu plus l. So now here there is another sutra that becomes activates. Okay, sheshat kartari parasmai padam, because it has a parasmai padam property, right? So that sutra triggers. Okay, again we can go see what is that sutra. So basically, what is the particular type of pratyaya list that can be applied? So Panini again provides the full pratyaya list. See, tip tas jhi sip thasma vish mas, something like that. Okay, so this is actually a concatenation of the 9 by 3 3 by 3 18 pratyayas, and then this one is tamitam sam. So maybe one is atmane, one is parasma, I don't know, whatever. So this kind of list is applicable. In that now we have to take the ti because my intent, because I have clicked on bhavati, which is 1.1. So ti is taken, the first is taken. Okay, and then the shap is added, which is the, because it's a latlakara, we need a gana vikarana. So gana vikarana is shap for this gana, bhu gana. So shap is added. Okay, bhu plus shap plus 3. In shap there are again itaksharas, so they go away, a is added, and bho happens. So what is in addition to this, bho has happened. So here sarva dhatu, karda dhatu, yoho, something is applicable for coming at that, and then it becomes bhavati and bhavati. Echo avayavaha, this is actually a yanta vanta sandhi. Okay, so the sandhi sutra is applied, then bhavati comes. Bhavati, bhavati. So bhavu came from this yanta desha, vanta desha. Vanta desha happened. O became substituted with av. Okay, bhav, and then bhavati. So this is simple compounding of the halanta va with a. So no particular additional help needed. Bhavati is the final form. So this Paninian Sutra, using the properties of the dhatu and the intent, the input intent of the because when I clicked bhavati, I intended to get latlakara pratama purusha ekavachana form. These are all the rules that are applicable to arrive at this. Okay, and same thing happens for all the lakaras. For example, if you take not a let us take lut lakara, which is not a gana vikarana, something like that, bhavita. So here the vikarana, see, there is no gana vikarana applied. That particular gana vikarana that was applied, shap, vap, and all is gone. So a different process happens. So here syatasi lulrutoho. So there is a gana vikarana taught by Panini in some particular place. So tasi has been applied for lut lakara because we clicked on lut. So like that it goes. So the final form is some bhavita, something like that, through that process. Okay. See, all the ardha dhatuka, sarva dhatuka, all those things are all coming. Okay. So let us take some similarly, if we go down this one, we can, I'm sure, somewhere find the idagama stuff, etc. So karmaka site, again, where the idagama, what it applies, also we have to know the context. At least in bhavati, when we didn't say any idagama related sutra anywhere. So maybe it's having further conditions under which idagama happens. Actually, idagama happens for certain pratyayas, not for certain other pratyayas. So we have to click everywhere and carefully look. Let me keep doing this. I think maybe bahuvachana. Kartari parasmai yecho to gune jali parasavarna. No idagama here. It should distinctly appear. Let's see. Okay, right now I don't want to waste our time finding it. I will do that research and share it either in the next class or in the group. I will try to show the idagama process. Okay, that also matters. Okay, so this is what is this site teaches us how this is happening. This is a very good site that way, and it is the most accurate website around with most comprehensive work. Okay, so I think we are past our time more or less. So maybe rather than rush through with more technical details and confuse you guys, let us continue this study in the next class about more details and all that. It's too technical, so I'll go slowly. Okay, now at this level, my intent is not for you to get what you call oh man, I mean, what is this? No, that is not the thing. The intent is actually to show there are certain underlying properties, some attached to the pratyaya, some attached to the dhatu, some attached to the ganas, some attached to the lakaras, etc., like this, by which the final form gets formed. Okay, so there is a database, there is a software which is the Paninian Ashtadhyayi. The database is the Dhatu Pata with the Saswara, which indicates the property type. Then there is actually user need what he wants. Does user wants to say Ramah Bhavati, so he needs Latlakara and Pratama Purusha Ekavachana, so that user input, all three combined for us to finally go through the churn to produce the pure good word. But we don't every time run our brain through this to generate the good word. So this software and all this is there to help us identify the good words. But for practical use of the language at the bhasha level, we have to internalize the forms. Okay, we should not need to run any engine in the head for bhavati. Okay, we should internalize. So like we internalize forms in Kannada, Tamil, any etc., any language, we also need to do that in Samskritam also, and that's where our simple non-grammar type teaching of the bhasha happens in that style, where we use lot of sentences, talk to each other and find out how to use the language. But when you want to start learning it at depth and want to do comprehensive work with it, we need to understand the Shastriya way of good words, because the computers cannot work with infinite database that Samskritam words are, because of the so many colorful variants that there are. It is more happy to work with an engine for deriving what it needs rather than work with an infinite sized database, right? That's what. Okay, all right, so with that, let's call it a day. If there are any terminal questions, so we can take it up. I will we will again kind of go through this a little bit, and there I will try to introduce some idagama examples also, like Bhagini asked, and we will see that also. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Namasarvebhya.
Recording